And so I have some slides I want to present here real quick. Okay, so like we said, you ask 100 different funeral homes what aftercare is, and you're going to get 100 different answers. And if you really look at the basis of aftercare, it has evolved through the years. Early on, funeral homes were more kind of a one-on-one small community. And you think about, the funeral home owner or the undertaker, they were just kind of part of the community and part of people's everyday lives. And so that aftercare really started about them being part of the community and being more than just a service, but being part of people's lives. If you take the early on aftercare, I call it the chicken dinner aftercare. In fact, we still have a client down in Texas who does this. They take a bucket of fried chicken out to their families about a week after services, because that's what it was. Hey, it was coming over to their house, sharing a meal with them, checking in on them, seeing how they're doing. Fortunately, with how busy funeral directors are today, that's just not a reality anymore.
It's pretty great, though, that a lot of communities still do this.
That's true.
For one another.
Having the community do this for each other is so important, but probably not realistic for the funeral home to be able to provide for each family. So after the 1950s, you started getting funeral homes that bought each other, and then you had these large corporations coming in. And that is why in the 1970s, things changed. Aftercare no longer was, hey, let's check in on the family. It was now, here's an opportunity to help families plan their own funeral. They just had an experience with the funeral home. Let's help them kind of figure out what those next steps are. And so they really started selling a lot of pre-need with aftercare brought in together. And this was the new mode of operation. All types of aftercare were pre-need sales. And there were a lot of different ways. Sometimes it was holding the death certificate hostage. Sometimes it was a nice friendly visit from the pre-need person. But whatever those next steps were, it was really focused on selling pre-need. In fact, it's funny, so many people today, when I tell them we do aftercare, they say, oh, we already have a pre-need company. And I was like, oh, well, those are two different things, because it has evolved since the 1970s. Some people became so offended with this whole process that pretty soon there was this feedback like, hey, the corporate level, sometimes people were at this time, we're getting oversold. I think that's definitely been fixed today, but at this time. And so a lot of the smaller independent funeral homes were looking for a new solution for aftercare that didn't feel so salesy. And that's where we started getting these follow-up programs, right? We have card programs. Some people send out ornaments. Some way to reach out to the family and say, hey, thank you for letting us serve you. We're thinking about you. We care about you. A little bit more of that warmth of that chicken dinner, but also doesn't really help the funeral home with their goals as much either. It's just more of a nice gesture that people really appreciate.
And Matt, this is also when funeral homes started having remembrances or events to invite families to participate in those things.
Right. That's exactly right. And so that was, and I think that those are beautiful and wonderful. Hospices have kind of similar things. Sometimes there's like a butterfly release or other remembrances for the year. I really appreciate these. And all of these are important aspects of aftercare. So in the 2010s, things started updating, right? No longer were people even looking at their mail sometimes. And so we saw a lot of people changing over to more like a texting follow-up aftercare program. And this is similar to the card program of reaching out, checking in on the family, seeing how they're doing, but not necessarily, not pushing them on pre-need, but also introducing that. One of the things I love about texting programs is it allows for when there's an issue or a problem, when someone's upset, it allows for that funeral homeowner to know it, right? Because now the family's not just sitting there like, oh, I wish they would have done this. It's kind of that immediate feedback. So it's that reach out, check in on you. Some people absolutely hate it. They hate the idea of being texted by a funeral home. A lot of people really love it. So I think that there's probably a lot more that love it than hate it, but this was kind of what the transition is. As you can see, it was still kind of in that follow-up aftercare, checking in on them, and then how do we bridge the gap between those programs and our pre-need sales without being pushy, and we definitely don't have time for chicken dinner. So in the 2020s, we started transitioning to a new type of aftercare. And that was that people wanted more service. They wanted more people to be with them and connect with them. And we have these early adopters who are transitioning their aftercare programs to be much more robust than what they used to be.
Yeah, a lot of funeral homes actually hired someone to reach out who was not pre-need. That
Right.
gets started there.
Yeah, right. You almost like a bereavement program from a hospice, right?
Yes.
I think this is really interesting. Foundation partners shared this with me, great friends over there. But in 2022, they did a survey to about 50,000 families. They asked them, what could we have done better? And overwhelmingly, it was, we need more support after the funeral. And more support is kind of, they're going back to what they were talking about. We need someone who's going to hold our hand and help us with those next steps. So what they mean is they mean a service-based aftercare, which is, why is that? Why do you think people are wanting more of that?
Well, I can tell you in my own personal experience, having been through loss, is a few days of dinners, maybe a week from your neighbors is great. But once the reality sets in and you look at all the things you have to do, it's so overwhelming. It can just stop you dead in your tracks.
Yeah, it really can. Even when my dad passed away about a year ago, I mean, I was so prepared for it. In fact, we were almost looking forward to that because he was struggling so much with his health issues, and we just didn't want him to be in pain anymore. And so it was well known it was going to happen. And when it happened, it was a little bit of a relief, but then also at the same time, it was overwhelming how much weight felt on my shoulders. And I just didn't know how to share that burden with others. There was the grief side of it, and then there was also the logistic side of it. I just felt alone.